Asked to introduce your speaker for the hour. This is my good friend Michael Solomon.
Hello.
Michael Solomon and his wife Maria are here, and they have two tables downstairs in the I guess the foyer of this big building, and they are with Canon Quest. So if you don't know about the Canon Quest Bible and Scripture Ministry, go check out their table. Usually one or both of them is there. And Michael also is the illustrator, the design master of my book cover. So if you want to come down and check out my table downstairs sometime, check out the book. Michael did the front and back covers for me. It's awesome. It's even better than I hoped for. But Michael Solomon is going to be your speaker, and it's going to be an awesome presentation. So just give it up for Michael Solomon.
Thanks, Nate. Also, Nate actually helps us with Canon Quest. My wife does research, and Nate will put in his input on the research. So he helps us a lot with that.
Way to go, Nate.
Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do is focus on, oh, by the way, welcome back. Take on the World. This is very cool. It's like coming home, you know? And what I really like about being here is that I don't have to bite my tongue. I don't have to beat around the bush and, you should research this and that. And so what I want to do today is not do that, all right? So I just want to just start out with a couple of heavy truth claims and then just go for it. The first section is for people who don't know what I do and who I am, because a lot of people say, what are your credentials? You can't challenge science. So then, that's exactly what I say, So my goal here is to help people know how to verify the truth on their own. You don't need a doctorate. Now, I'm not against PhDs and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But in order to challenge the truth, you don't need a special degree. Okay, or in order to challenge a lie with truth, you don't need a special degree. So I don't know if I have sound here, but let's start out with the first slide. So there you have our wonderful, wonderful world, and we live on a spinning globe, flying through space, and see this wonderful curvature of our world. Isn't it beautiful, our blue marble? No. Absolutely not. It does not exist. All right, we do not live on a spinning ball. The Earth is flat, and space doesn't exist. Let's move on. So now you have here the first man on the moon, the greatest achievement of mankind. We actually landed on that beautiful, romantic gray ball that tends to reflect light so efficiently, but we'll deal with that later. So we have these guys landing on the moon, and they're planting the flag and bounce up and down with a little gravity. It's the greatest achievement of mankind. Nope, not at all. Didn't happen, never happened. You cannot land on the moon because it is a giant ball that actually produces its own light. So we'll talk about that and how to prove it. So this never happened. All right, so now we have our wonderful solar system. All right, and somebody put music to it. So all of our planets are following the sun as the sun flies through the Milky Way galaxy at the speed of a bullet. That is remarkable. With little specks that live on a little speck and a backward solar system. And no, we do not. Okay, there is no such thing as a solar system. There is no such thing as space. And the sun, yeah, that's my sound effect. And the sun is not a giant hydrogen ball of burning fire. All right, so one more. I love this one. All right, so one day we're going to be attacked, and the enemies of our world are going to come and attack us humans, us earthlings on our wee little planet. They're going to come all the way from another galaxy just to shoot us up. All right, it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And no, it's not. All right, because there are no aliens flying around in outer space. Okay, and we have proof to back that up, and that's what I'm here today to share with you. All right, this is my ultimate favorite. With all the rocks flying around, I had to do some special editing on this one, the music and everything. Okay, so with all these rocks flying around space, eventually we're going to get hit. Yeah, we are going to die one day because that big old rock is going to hit our little planet and cause all this devastation. We are doomed. It is inevitable. It's going to happen. No, it's not. It's not going to happen. There are giant rocks flying through space, getting ready to kill us all. Now see, I can't talk like this out there. Okay? So I'm just letting it all out here, all right? But you know what? It looks good. All right? It makes for a great movie. I mean, I applaud the person that did the animation, being an animator. Okay? I applaud them. Great job. All right, so this proves all of this is a bunch of foolishness.
Amen.
Okay? It literally, in one single stroke, completely and utterly destroys the heliocentric model, evolution, Big Bang. It destroys it all. But the question is, how do we prove it to those that we love and those that we care about? All right? And so I want to give a few hints on how to do that.
Can you hold the mic?
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Because I won't have a voice after a while. Okay, thank you. All right, so I want to start out with the scientific method. Everyone is familiar with the scientific method. So you create a hypothesis, measurement and experiment, collect data, formulate a question, and modification of hypothesis, which is the part I don't like about the scientific method. Okay, so you actually modify your results to match what you think. That's not cool. All right, so I prefer the zetetic method, okay, which is actually the method used by engineers. You try it, it doesn't work, you try it again until it does, okay? That's why I love engineering. It's a very clean science. So you formulate a question, perform, experiment, collect data, draw conclusion, does not speculate on what the answer might be before testing it out, all right? So the zetetic method is basically what you see and what you experience primarily, and that's why I like it. All right. This is something that we all need to keep in mind.
So let's start with a foundation in daily reality.
For some reason, I can't turn my volume up.
Put the mic on the speaker.
Distance
What speaker?
The laptop.
and
Your
time
laptop.
has no effect.
It's not coming from here. It's actually coming from the projector. And the projector seems to have taken over my volume.
With circumstances.
You know what? Hold on a second.
For example,
Oh, I can't turn the volume off either.
change. The light of a candle, the warmth of a fireplace, the smoke
I'll explain this
of a
once.
bonfire, or the destructive power of a volcano all share the same set of traits. Fire burns, consumes oxygen, produces light, radiates heat, creates smoke, and is extinguished with water. The manifestation of these traits will vary due to circumstances, of course, but constants will never change. If we keep this foundation in mind, discerning reality from fiction will cease to be a problem.
The rule of physics is that size, distance, and time has no effect on physics. We're not taught this in school, but this is real life. All right? So if you keep that in mind, and my example was fire. Fire is the same no matter how big or small it is, it always has the same traits. All right? Same with electricity, same with wind, same with any earthly phenomenon, any phenomenon that you experience on a daily basis. Okay? I'm often asked this question, and I want to address it since this is going on YouTube. And I think it's a valid question, so people often ask, who are you to challenge the years of scientific discovery? What are your credentials? Okay, so first of all, I'm a human, all right, and I experience the world. And my senses can be depended upon, even though science, the secret mantra of science is, don't believe what you see, believe what we say. Okay, ignore what you see. So I was actually, this question here, the top one, I was actually challenged by an 11-year-old. And I teach sometimes, I was teaching a class in Photoshop, and we started talking about science. And All I said was, don't believe everything you hear, verify. He got cussing, an 11-year-old cussed me out in class, okay, and didn't come back, all right, just because I said, just verify, don't believe everything science tells you. I didn't even tell him the Earth was flat. Oh, that really would have meltdown after that, okay? So there was this gentleman, I want, my time is short, I only have an hour so I won't read this, but this gentleman, I did a post online, and he's an expert in production, and he said, I did a post on corpuscular rays, light beams, sunlight beams, and he said that he creates those on stage all the time. And once he realized that, then he was on the road to realizing true cosmology. But he's a topic expert, just like Daryl Lee that came up here. And I like listening to people that actually use Earth phenomenon, use science on a daily basis and get predictable results, okay? I find listening to them is far more useful than listening to a dude with a white coat that's actually paid to talk, all right? But he doesn't do anything. He hasn't created anything. That's what I don't like about Einstein. If you notice, Einstein never created anything. He did a whole lot of thinking.
Refrigerator.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so so he never created anything. So my credentials. I'm gonna just go through this quick, just for the people online, because most of you already know who I am. I'm an animator. All right. So I build characters, environments, and stuff like that. And this is what I actually do for a living. Wow. So I made all those characters and environments and animated logos and all that cool stuff. And virtual prototypes up here. And characters, I love doing characters, they're a lot of fun. Also, I'm an illustrator, so I draw. So all of these I drew, I draw logos. Yeah, I draw the logos here. And this was a book for a author in Washington, no, New York. And this was this was for a museum. So this is for comic book. So also I do photography, you know, that guy. So I designed that cover. And I do a lot of photography. This is my favorite wedding shot. I love this shot. I wanted something different, so I asked them, everyone look serious. And it looked like a mob family. And it's really cool. I love that shot. So I've been doing what I do for 35 years. Don't ask me to help you with your car. Composition, perspective, which is really important, perception of 3D environment, color theory, spatial relationships, sense of timing and spacing. I must have the skill to predict results while experiencing and working in the world around me. That's what a professional does. And that's why listening to people that actually use the technology over and over again and use these phenomena, they're the ones that actually know how it works. Okay? That's why when that guy sent me that message, that was just awesome. Okay, so I'm doing a session today, one tomorrow. Today is on terrestrial. How do we talk about the terrestrial evidence of the truth of our world? And tomorrow, celestial. Let's start with corpuscular rays. I love corpuscular rays because they're easy. All right. Corpuscular rays. These are the different names for corpuscular rays: sunbeams and fingers of God, sunbursts, that sort of thing. Sun rays. So you've all seen this, okay? But what does science say? How this happens? So then, and I like empirical evidence for everyone. This is just great for everyone. So it's approachable. So modern science explanation, some beams are parallel shafts of light. Remember that, parallel shafts of light passing through gaps in clouds. Their apparent convergence is a perspective effect, similar, for example, to the way parallel railroad lines seem to converge at a point in the distance. I must admit, when I first read that, I laughed out loud. I said, you just made my job easy, okay? I couldn't believe, now, I don't think NASA's stupid, but really, that's it? That's the best they can do with that? So, okay, watch this. So, okay, this is what they say. This is straight from Gateway Astronaut Photography Earth, All right, this is a screenshot from their website. You can actually go there. There's the URL. You can actually go there and see this shot. And what they're saying is these are actual actual parallel sunbeams. Actually, what this is a high altitude photograph, and these aren't sunbeams; those are shadows. All right, but they say they're sunbeams. They're parallel sunbeams coming from the giant sun. All right, and these are other high altitude shots that they've taken. So really, the sun is at a sharp angle to the clouds, and it creates those long shadows. All right, so let's explore that. They say this is what's really happening. This is what you're really seeing when you see crepuscular rays, when you see the sunbeams. All right, so let's explore that. All right, here's what they say. This is the size of the Earth, size of the sun. This is the distances that we're dealing with here. And this is not to scale. Oh, by the way, you can't do scale, okay? When it comes to space, when it comes to the heliocentric model, there's no such thing as doing it to scale. I use 3D software all the time, and the software smokes every time I try to do it. It doesn't work trillions upon trillions of miles. So here's the Earth, but that's not the scale. It should be a lot smaller, all right? And these are sunbeams that are coming from this giant sun, and it will literally cover the entire Earth. Keep that in mind. So then, modern science states perspective is the primary factor for the phenomenon of crepuscular rays. That's how they stand on this, okay? Let's look at that. So, according to modern science, we should see this. That's what we should see. And we should see it all over the sky, okay? Constantly. Right now, if it's coming through the clouds, you should see these beams according to science. But instead, they say because of an illusion, we see this. Okay? In one spot. If you notice, crepuscular rays are always in one spot. It's never all over the place. All right? But that's what we actually experience in real life. Okay, real world observation. What is perspective? Perspective is based on point of view only. There is no other way, okay? And if they can prove that, I'd love to see it. That would be a trick. They probably claim quantum physics or something. So then you have how something appears is based on its relative distance and position. Okay, we'll look at that. All right, this is a video I shot of railroad tracks. They said this is an example of what you see when you're looking at crepuscular rays is this shot here. This is what we experience, and I put the sound in there because people accuse me of making stuff up because I'm an animator. All right, that's a video I shot. Okay, with the P900, I had to put that up there. So if you can see, there's a convergence when you're lined up with the tracks. But look, when I'm not, as I get out of line of the tracks, that convergence disappears.
Oh, nice.
All right, you have to have perspective is point of view dependent. There is no other way to get that. You have to be at a certain spot to get that single point perspective, okay, in the art world. So you have to be in this position to get that spot, to get that convergence. All right, let's do it again. All right, so here we go. Here's a street here in Cleveland, Ohio. So once again, you have that perspective. Everyone sees that every day. But then I turn the camera, but as the camera is out of line of those convergence lines, I'm losing that effect. All right? There is no other way to get that effect. So I'm doing a whole 360 here, and as you can see, it's starting to converge as I line up, and then there you go, you get it again. I even went to Macy's and did it. Okay, there it is. Trust me, that was scary. Okay, so I had to be real covert. I don't want to be, accused or anything. And I was in there with my wife, so of course it's a women's section. And I'm with a camera. I mean, with my phone. That was kind of scary, but I had to do it. So you can see the convergence. All right. So, and you see the line. There's no convergence. All right. So to tap that off, here's an animation of the railroad tracks. Okay. I'm just beating this horse over and over again. As you can see, that's the only way you can see it. Perspective convergence is point of view dependent only. All right? That's what we see. We see that because of certain aspects I'm going to talk about. But that has nothing to do with point of view. If that was a perspective effect, you would actually have to be directly under it in order to see those lines converge. But this guy is miles away from it. Okay? This was in Maui. He's miles away from it. All right? From the side. Oh, by the way, have you ever tried to hunt down crepuscular rays when you see them? Have you ever tried to actually go under them? It's really hard. It's kind of weird. Okay? You can never really get there. It's very interesting. So, perspective has nothing to do with crepuscular. How are crepuscular rays created? You need an obstruction, proximity, and particulates. So the obstruction in this case are clouds, all right, and the proximity of the sun is the light source, and particulates in this case is probably fog, okay? But you can have dust, pollution, snow, I mean all kinds of little particulates that the sunbeams have to illuminate in order to get that effect. Okay, this was actually shot here, all right? So as you can see, you have the clouds, which are the obstruction, and the mist in the air in the morning was the particulates, okay? And the proximity is a close light source. You can only get crepuscular rays with a close and really close light source, okay? Also, another thing, if you notice on the water, it's going to go back, there's what's called a specular highlight. It's a very blown, you see this very blown out highlight here, okay? That only occurs with a close light source. If the light was further up away, then that highlight would expand until it becomes a diffuse highlight, which means it's just a spread out highlight. You can only get that with a close light source, okay? And if they're going to have to prove that you can't. That's just simple. You see that every day. Okay, so I have a live experiment, but I only have an hour, so I can't do it here. It's all set up back there. So when this room is empty, if anyone wants to actually perform the experiment and actually create crepuscular rays right here, okay, nice. just let me know. But I don't have enough time to do it. So, all right, how can crepuscular rays be used as evidence for the flat Earth? This is real important. Don't convince crack, okay? Don't try to convince someone that space doesn't exist, all right? Don't try to turn them into a flat earther. Oh, by the way, I come from scripture. I first learned this from Mark Sargent, and then I read the Bible. I know this is the wrong way, but that's what happened. But I am a biblical creationist, aka flat earther, and I don't have a problem calling myself a flat earther because I think it's kind of cool. All right. Once I learn the reality of our world, then I identify with it. Okay. So, all right. Here are the conclusions. A light source close enough to create crepuscular rays cannot be 93 million miles away. By the way, can anyone see 93 million miles? Come on, okay? I mean, now that I actually realize that, it's like, what? I mean, you see my glasses here. I don't have the best eyesight. And yes, I'm a photographer, all right? But I don't have the best eyesight. But I can't see 93 million miles away. And as you can see here, the clouds are in the midst of, I think that's the sun or the moon, I forgot. But the clouds are in the midst of, I think it's the sun, okay? I have here measurements of how high clouds are. The sun and moon are really close, okay? And sometimes I tell people, personally, I think the sun and moon is about 20 miles high, and that's being a little generous, okay? Because they clearly can't be any higher than the clouds, and we know how high clouds are. So, you know, that's what it looks like to me. Okay. A specular highlight is only created by a close light source. So, this is a specular highlight. If that light source rises up, then that highlight spreads out, gets softer, and ceases to be a specular highlight. once again, distance, okay? It has to be really close to do that. All right, what does this prove? What do corpuscular rays prove? And this might sound like a stretch, but when you really think about it and ignore everything you were taught, ultimately, corpuscular rays prove the solar system cannot exist. If the sun is within our atmosphere, how are the other planets orbiting around it? Okay? You can't have both. So, corpuscular rays prove that there is no solar system. Also, the Earth is geocentric. It doesn't move. It proves that. Okay? The sun is not millions of times larger than the Earth, but much smaller than the Earth. So this foolishness does not exist. Okay? It can be bigger than the Earth because it's in our atmosphere. All right? So the evidence of the truth was designed by God to be easily understood, but at the end of the day, it comes down to what one is willing to believe, truth or fiction. If you're comfortable with the fiction, then the truth is going to be basically insulting. All right? So it actually does come down to belief. But are you going to believe the lie or the truth? Okay? So don't accept, verify. So I just kind of rushed through that. But corpuscular rays is a real easy way to crack the veneer of the preconditioning that so many of us have been suffering through all our lives. And I don't try to convince people. I try to just give them something to think about. The moon is its own light source. What? All right. And once I prove it, I should really look into that. Bam, done. Okay. I'm not trying to change their entire paradigm, especially in an Uber car. All right. So I'm saying, okay, how can I help this person? How can, and so I find out what they're interested in and then zero in on that. All right. So I just give them, I think it's only once I told a person that the earth was flat, but they actually came up with it themselves. Wait a minute, that would mean the earth is flat. Yeah, So, but that's like once, but I don't really say that straight out. So I try to use stuff like corpuscular rays because it's so easy. Perspective has nothing to do with it at all. And when you take perspective out, you have to look at proximity. And proximity and with corpuscular rays is everything. Okay? Any questions?
Well, quick question.
Yes.
I was wondering, with the corpuscular rays thing, have you ever heard anyone argue that the light is traveling straight until it hits a cloud and then that causes it to refract or scatter or something? Because I feel like that would be a better argument, right?
It would be a better argument. I've heard that. The problem is that the rays of light that are coming from a light source so much bigger than the Earth is going to cover the entire Earth. Okay? So it's not going to just zero in, it doesn't work that way.
Michael, wouldn't every hole in the clouds have its own triangle?
Yep.
Then?
Yep. You would see a field of corpuscular rays, which would be way cool, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes.
I've told people, I think where you see those corpuscular rays hit the ground, if you were standing where that ray hits the ground, you could look back up that ray and see the sun. There is no curving, there is no distortion of the sun. If you were standing on the other side and you follow up that ray, you would see the sun. So you're triangulating the sun.
You could do that, yeah.
And as a child, remember when you saw, all it is a break in the clouds.
Yep.
It allows the sunlight to go through.
Right.
Well, if you're standing out on a cloudy day, you can see that a lit spot in the ground as it approaches you, and when you're in that lit spot, you look up, there's the sun. It's the same thing without the mist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because without the mist, there wouldn't be any rays. So
It's just a break in the clouds.
it's just a break in the clouds. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Excellent presentation on everything. The Euclidean geometry to determine distance to the sun. What are your thoughts on that? Is it legit or no?
The math works out. The only problem is they come up with flat earthers have come up with the sun is 3,000 miles away. I can't see 3,000 miles. I mean, I'm just looking at it real basic here. My next presentation tomorrow really focuses on what the eye can see and why. But I can't see 3,000 miles. Okay, I'm going by visually, if it's within the midst of the clouds, we know how high those clouds are. Ergo, it's at the same height as the clouds. So, yes.
You said it might be 20 miles up, but there's YouTube videos where they've set weather balloons up like 120,000 feet, which is about 25 miles.
Mhm.
And
25 miles?
about 25 miles up before
Yeah.
they pop. But they're never looking down at the sun. They're still looking. So it's a little more than that.
I have no problem with that. 3,000 miles I have a problem with.
Right.
Yeah, I can't see a license plate 2 houses down from me. So how am I going to see 3,000 miles? It's kind of nuts, you know? So I'm saying common sense has a lot to do with this and critical thinking skills. And I've actually heard people say, common sense, what's wrong with you? It's what we use every day. I mean, if you're walking past a house and you see a pit bull loose and he's tearing a bird up, okay, and you're going to walk past the house, no, you're going to cross the street, okay? That's called common sense. We use it all the time. So why isn't it valid here? You know? Yes. You got a question?
Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
I seen a YouTube video, and being you do what you do as a professional, you might be able to know whether it was true or not, of these guys that were flying in a plane and actually were above the clouds.
I'm actually going to show that video tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that a true video? Was that trickery? Was that?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I did some forensics on it. Nah, it's legit. And the pilots were freaking out.
Yeah,
They were like,
they were
look at
excited.
that! Yeah, because the sun was under the clouds. They were above the clouds, but the sun was under the
Well, the
clouds.
scripture says that the sun is in the clouds.
It says it's under the dome. It's in the clouds. So it makes perfect sense. One guy on Facebook, he kind of beat me up. He said, "You idiot, you moron," you know all these names they use. And he said that the sun was clearly on the horizon. Well, you have to see the video. The sun was here, the horizon was way over there. So was that distortion again? Okay, so no, those guys were freaking out because they were like, this isn't supposed to be happening. And they weren't, about to have a heart attack. They were all smiling and stuff. They said, this is great. I mean, they thought it was amazing they were actually seeing that. But the sun was clearly under the clouds. Anyone else?
On that one, Michael, if we were on a ball and the sun was coming up over the horizon, wouldn't you see the sun rays coming either parallel or from below, coming
Right.
past on the sun on your roof?
Right.
But that never happens. All the light rays are always coming down.
Right, and you've seen something, I think they call it anti-crepuscular rays, which is a dumb name, it's just crepuscular rays. Where the sun, I actually think I showed one, where you have the clouds here, but the sunbeams are coming up. But that's only because of the angle of the sun to the bank of clouds. So it's coming up instead of going down. But that doesn't mean that the earth rotated and now the sun it doesn't mean that at all. It's still proximity. Proximity is the boss when it comes to sunbeams. And proximity destroys everything. Okay, because if the sun really is in our atmosphere, heliocentric model ceases to exist. Yes?
This is my first time here at
Okay.
this conference, and I'm enjoying my time. But my mind is blown open by not what I've heard before, but hearing today that when you think about just like photography, and when you see a spot in the water or on the ground where it's illuminated, you can't be this far, millions of miles away. It has to be very close distance.
Right.
Yeah.
And what science does, science actually, they depend on the trillions. I'm going to deal with that tomorrow. I'm going to deal with space a lot tomorrow. Space is a favorite subject of mine. Because I used to be the original space cadet until, when I was a kid. I stopped wanting to be an astronaut when I learned what space was. And I still liked space when I was a kid, but I didn't want to go there. I mean, who in their right mind want to go to that horrible place? But I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Based on what you were saying.
Distance. His mind was blown because of the isolated spot.
As I saw of light reflecting on like water.
Right. When I'm shooting and I need to create, like that gentleman Roscoe said, when you're creating and using lighting, you need to predict what it's going to do at every given time. Okay. Now, the only reason scientists come up with all these huge numbers is because they add in that alien environment called the ever-expanding infinite cosmos, which is a contradiction, by the way. If it's ever-expanding, it can't be infinite. You can pick one, all right? So it's really funny, but they have to add in space. They have to add in light years. The only reason light years exist is because of space, the vastness of space. So they have to add in all that. Once you add all of that, all bets are off. You can say anything you want. Harry Potter, you know, whatever. Give me a wand. I mean, that's you can just do and say anything and make it believable. But if you take out space, physics right here on Earth is the only way it works. There is no other way. It's predictable. That's the fun of it. Okay, that's why electricians and stuff can do what they do without killing people, and engineers and people to make things, and artists. Okay, they can predict the results. Oh, just a second, ma'am.
It seems to me that if we choose to believe what we are taught, we will receive that strong delusion because we have chosen the lie that has been spoken to us rather than to believe what our eyes show us. So I think that we, in the American education system, raised in the American education system, maybe are just all suffering from this strong delusion. We don't, we didn't really make a choice consciously to believe that lie, but we did do that. And so I think that's our problem, is breaking down this strong delusion.
I totally agree.
Choose to see.
I totally agree. I do not blame the teachers that taught me space exists, and I do not blame the pastors that taught me space exists.
Right.
Although they should have a little bit more on the beam, okay? I mean, they were paid to study scripture. So, I had to find this out in my 50s, okay? But no, I don't blame the teachers because they were taught the same lie. I have a friend of mine, he's a world-renowned physicist. I can't tell him this. He's getting up in years and he's a bit unhealthy. This will kill him. I mean, literally. That's why I don't tell him. He has no idea. But he loves the Lord, and he actually gives he gives this impassioned reason why the Big Bang is in the Bible. It's not there, okay? Because that's one of the questions I ask people. Have you ever found any evidence of an ever-expanding infinite cosmos in Scripture? Have you ever found evidence of more than one sun, more than one moon, more than one earth? It's not there. Now, most people say, well, the Bible isn't a science book. You've heard that, okay? But it's so detailed about creation, you would seem to think something as big as space is going to show up somewhere, okay? Yet it never does. So you get to the point where you have to choose to believe. Who are you going to believe? A bunch of dudes that basically just...
White lab coats.
Yeah, with the lab coats, and they insult scripture constantly, okay, and say we're just fools for believing it. Or are you going to believe the same God that saved your soul from hell and that you have a tight relationship with and that you know him from day to day to day to day, all right? I think I'm going to go with scripture, all right? That friend of mine, he actually laughs when I said I read the Bible literally. He thought that was the dumbest thing ever. He said, well, it's full of simile and metaphor. The whole Bible, okay? Which is ridiculous, okay? That doesn't even work. I mean, how do you get a spinning ball from Genesis 1? Even if it was a metaphor, it's a very bad one. It's not done very well. So I don't really get that. Yes?
1 or 2 minutes, how did you get this? How did you figure out it was flat?
It started out with 9/11. Once I learned that 9/11 was an inside job. Once I learned Sandy Hook was a total hoax. Once I learned about transhumanism and transgenderism, how many dudes running around trying to act like a woman, which is a base insult, all right? Yeah, I can name some names, okay? Wait, a certain tennis player? So, that's a dude, come on. Look, I wish I had a body like that. I mean, minus, but that dude, I don't like him because he's a good tennis player, But the problem is, he's a coward because he's playing against women and he's a guy dressed as a woman. That's a coward. Okay? So hopefully he's listening, and but he could probably beat me up. But but once I learned about that, I was already open. And then I was working one day. I took a break. I looked at some YouTube videos, and this thing about flat Earth kept coming up. I said, "That's stupid. I'm not gonna watch that." So then I kept looking for other videos, and it kept coming up. And I don't know why, because my search, because I was looking for something. I like to watch short films from independent movie makers just to see what's going on out there. So how did flat Earth come in there? So then I said, "Oh well, I'm bored. I'll look." So I watched it. Mark Sargent. Literally, I kid you not, after the 11th video, I said, "Oh my God, the Earth is flat." And then I read the Bible and said, "I haven't seen this." I was literally sick for 3 days because I love space. I love space. I love all the nebulas and the black holes and all that stuff. Okay, I love space, but it just, I knew that if there's a dome, there's no space. I mean, it was instant. Okay, of course there couldn't be any space. So then after that, I told my wife, and here's the funny part. I told her about the whole thing. She said, well, of course the Earth isn't moving. It's geocentric. Didn't you know that? I said, what? We've been married 16 years. And she never told me that. I said, oh, come on, you know? And she said, well, I thought everyone knew. She grew up in a Catholic school. Back then, they taught that. And she automatically knew it. Chris Bailey and Liz, same thing. But I grew up in a public school. So, you know, we were taught the whole shebang. But then I started doing the research. I started looking at the world with my professional eye as well as my faith eye. And I started to see things. And I just went nuts after that. And it's basically changed my life. I mean, now, I still love sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but it's a fantasy. It has never happened. It will never happen. But it is good writing. I grant you that. The visual effects, awesome, okay? I love the characters and stuff like that, so I still love sci-fi, but I no longer believe it. Okay, it's just a fantasy, that's all it is, just good entertainment. So if you take it like that, it's no longer propaganda. Now we know what is propaganda, we know that, okay? But like my favorite sci-fi is, okay, I know somebody's gonna give me, he's pushing sci-fi, is Firefly. Anyone familiar with that, Firefly? Okay, it's kind of like Western in space, you know? It's really, in the way they do the dialogue and stuff, it's really cool. So that's how I came up with it. I still like sci-fi, but now part of what I do in life is proving that this stuff is foolishness and that it doesn't exist. And that the Bible really is true and it can be depended on. Anything else? Yes.
I was wondering, you were showing us some like high altitude photography earlier.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you've seen any high altitude shots that would show like cast shadows of objects scattering out as if it was from a light source, like rather than the shadows traveling parallel, have it look like it's localized where they're all heading out like radially.
It depends on where the sun is in respect of the object, how the shadows are cast. So that could definitely happen. Because, you know, as we know, the sun does not go down, it just goes out into the distance. And as it changes that perspective to the object, the shadows are going to change accordingly. So that actually could happen. The shadows could be extended way out long because it's further away. And I'm actually going to do that kind of experiment tomorrow. Because the experiment I'm going to do tomorrow doesn't require all that contraption I did back there. It's just lights moving around. So I'll show that how lights work on a globe, how wide the sun is self-illuminating. It's obvious if one opens one's mind to it. It can't reflect the sun. When's the last time you saw talcum powder reflect the sun as if it was a piece of sterling silver? Okay, come on, it's ridiculous. Of course not. And on top of that, how could they land on something that bright? As you get closer to a light source, it increases its luminosity by 4 times, okay? By the time you land on it, you're dead, if you get that close. Because remember, the moon is not only what they say is cold, but it would actually be very hot too. On one side is freezing cold, okay? I think it's 273 degrees Kelvin, which freezes what they call molecular structure. Oh, and I'm questioning that too, by the way. On the other side, you got 280 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why there is no Tesla car floating around, okay? Because it would have melted and frozen over and over again. So it's ridiculous. So when you know this truth, you know that stuff like Tesla, what's that fool's name?
Elon.
Yes. When he talks about that sort of thing and launching a car up into space because it's yeehaw fun, okay? You know it's an instant lie. Bam, lie. Okay, it's an instant lie. That's the beauty of this truth. Oh, by the way, it's something I got 10 minutes left. It's something I wanted to mention. I teach photography, and this is kind of fun. I teach photography, and in the photography world, if a long lens is considered 200 millimeter, okay, and that will enable me to someone in the back could get like a head and shoulders of me with a 200 millimeter, okay? So that's a must lens you have to have some versatility. You're really rocking when you got a 300 millimeter, okay? And you're the ultimate pro to get 600. But no. In the flat earth world, they deal in thousands, all right? You talk about 200 millimeter to a flat earth photographer, he'll look at you like, what am I gonna do with that? All right? So in the flat earth community, it's all about 800s, 900, 1200, 2000, now 3000. It's really cool. But in my professional world, the photographers that I know have no idea that even exists. Okay? And even if they did, they wouldn't use it because it's not standard. So they're ruled by that. My thing is whatever works, you know. This gives me a lot of freedom. This is my secondary video camera because I do video professionally, but that's my secondary video camera, and I use it professionally. So don't let anybody tell you the P900 and P1000 is a toy. It's not. Oh, it's pretty expensive, but actually it's not, because you're basically paying for the lens. I know it sounds like a commercial, but I know a lot of people have questions about the P1000. You're basically paying, it's about $1,000, it's still $1,000. The P900 is still $600. Okay, now here's the interesting part. This camera is a small fraction of Nikon's income, but they're still selling it. Why? There's two groups that made the P900 when it first came out huge. Birders. Birders love the P900 because they can coast those birds without carrying. Wait, hold on. Without carrying this. Okay, so they love it. They replace this with that. All right, so birders and flat earthers, but Nikon won't admit that. Okay, but it's true, and the fact that camera even exists is astonishing to me because it takes the cover off of so many lies. But they actually increased it, and they actually made it easier to use. The P1000 is worth buying. I have the P900. The only reason I don't have the P1000 is because I put all my money in the Canon Quest, those posters that I produce and the study tools. But as soon as I can, I'm getting one. It's worth it. The upgrade is definitely worth it. It's easier, it's more powerful. Also, it does 4K video. It does, the focusing is a lot easier. For those of you that have tried to take pictures with stars with the P900, you can do it, but it is a pain. Okay, trying to focus manually, oh my goodness, you got the little wheel in the back, you got to spin it all the way around. And by the time you focus on, the stars move out of your field of view. So, but the P1000 focuses manually with a nice big fat gnarly ring on the front lens and just turn it. It's really awesome. So it's worth the expense. Yes.
I've had two 900s in the 1000. The 1000 autofocus is too much easier too, so you can take quick pictures and they're crisp. The 900, it's a way better camera. It's worth all the money, guys.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah. Now I recently took some pictures of some stars, and I actually learned how to use autofocus in order to use it. So if this can actually autofocus on stars, because stars are hard because they're so small, and you can zoom in on them. You've seen those photos. in those videos of stars. That's legitimate stuff, okay? Stars aren't what they say they are. They're just like this undulating ball of light, all right? But you can actually shoot it with that camera. It looks awesome, but it takes practice. And it's good to know some basic photography rules in order to do that, how to use f-stop, shutter speed, ISO, and how to focus. Focusing isn't as easy as you would think it is. There's some skill behind it, but you don't need 35 years experience to do it, okay? So it's definitely worth buying. So if anyone had that question. Yes?
All the satellites that they say are up there, whether they're or not, do they ever say how high they get? Because if they are higher than the sun, you know they're not going to be showing a photo of them above it because they're there.
Good point,
So,
good point.
you know,
The satellites that they have, if you look at the diagrams, I cover that tomorrow too. They're over 5,000 satellites active. The inactive ones go into several hundred thousand, and then the space debris, okay, that are flying around. But you're right. Satellites exist, but not the way they say. Since there is no space, they're basically high altitude balloons and high altitude aircraft that are doing what they do up there. Okay, they have to come down eventually. Since it's not orbiting around a spinning ball. But satellites exist at a fashion, just not the way they say. But it's a lot of them up there, which means the ISS shouldn't exist, okay? Because it should be riddled with bullet holes all the time. Did you remember that story where I have 4 minutes. Remember that story where this micrometeor or this speck of paint or whatever popped through the ISS?
Yeah.
Okay, and then NASA saw it. I mean, it registered on their instruments, but they decided, we'll let them know, when they wake up. It's cool, okay? And then when they woke up, one of the astronauts woke up and they said, oh, you got a hole in the ISS. Oh my goodness, okay, well, what are we gonna do? Okay, I'll plug it up with my finger and put his finger in. Okay, now we're talking about 10 to the -7 torr. Space is not just empty, it is truly a vacuum. And it's a giant, ever-expanding vacuum. His arm, at the very least, should have been literally ripped away. Matter of fact, that hole should have turned into a gaping maw, and they all should have died a horrible decompression death. Okay? Yet they didn't. All right? They should be getting holes going through, I call it a ballistic tornado up there. Okay? The ISS should be riddled with holes. It shouldn't exist. It can't. Literally, space is unsurvivable. The way they describe it, you can't live there. You can't go there. There's way too many ways to die. And since this ain't Star Trek, where they have force fields and stuff like that, electromagnetic force fields and all that, you can't protect yourself against the radiation. You can't protect yourself against the vacuum. If you protect yourself against the vacuum, the meteors are going to get you. Or the radiation is going to get you. If you protect yourself against that, there's just too many ways to die. So the ISS should not exist, and I go through that tomorrow. So, any questions? I have 2 minutes. I'm talking faster than I thought I could. Let's see. Well, space is a pretty big one, yes.
Earlier in your presentation, you said the moon is a ball, but the balls that why do you think it's a ball?
It's not.
Okay.
Actually, if you look at the photographs, I may have misspoke there, but if you look at the photographs, I don't have a photograph of the moon. I've taken a lot of shots. The moon is easy. Okay, you can hand shoot the moon with this camera and come out with tack sharp photos. Okay, but if you look at it, you'll see the brightly lit moon from edge to edge, but then the edges kind of curve a little. Okay, so I think the moon is kind of shaped kind of like a frisbee, but it's definitely not a ball, nor is the sun.
Could the curving not be actual but apparent? So it could be.
I think it's apparent.
So
I think it's apparent. I don't think it's actual.
Well, then it wouldn't be a frisbee. It would just be frisbee shaped.
Frisbee-ish. Okay, because good point. Because in the different phases on the edge, it seems like it's curving a little. So yeah, it would be a frisbee. Okay, or else it'd be half a frisbee, a quarter of a frisbee. So yeah, it's the one interesting thing about the moon and the sun is it seems to be see but don't touch technology. Because since the sun is close, why can't you go there? I heard a story of a guy in a plane and he tried to reach the sun. He said, because he's a flat earther, he said, the most bizarre thing, I know it's close, all the evidence states it's close, I'm in a plane, I should be able to go there. And he kept flying toward it and he never seemed to get there. It was like he was getting close but not, it was freaking him out, okay? So I think there's gonna be things that we don't know about this world and we will never know, okay? Yes?
Is it possible the moon and the sun are actually some type of lighted, superpowered holograms
Projection.
or not?
Some type of projection or like a reflection, as maybe like it's,
You just said that you can't really get to it.
you can't really get there, and that would explain it. Yeah.
Also, when you watch like the light reflecting off the bottom of clouds, it's not actually there. It's just there for the observer. If you move over there, that line moves. Over there. So what's interesting about the moon is that it's you-centered. So it's always facing you. But if you're in Australia, then it's facing you in Australia.
Right.
So it could lead to the idea that yeah, it is a reflection because reflections have that characteristic where they're you-centered.
Okay, in the 3D world, point on that. In the 3D world, if I wanted, I could create an object, and what I do is I tell that object to point at another object that's moving. And no matter where that other object moves, like I could tell it to point at the camera. So I will move the camera and I will see the same face of that object everywhere the camera moves. So I can tell the environment what to do. I think that's what's happening here. I think we have to realize that our environment is some pretty high-end tech, and we're not, now I'm not saying we live in a virtual environment and that foolishness, okay? This is real, all right? We aren't digitized and all that. That's just dumb, okay? So no. Everything's, knock on wood, real. But it's a technology that we don't know. It was created by an individual who created the world with words. So what makes us think we're gonna understand all of this? Yes?
We come down to the simple point too, is that our Creator has boundaries for us humans. And so it's like, you know, just feel like, and we are very much loved. We're not some speck floating around.
Right.
We're protected. So nobody here, nothing's coming in, nothing's out, and then the Illuminati wants to have this little alien invasion and all this stuff, and it's all a lie, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a lie.
Yeah, it's all a lie.
We're loved and we just have boundaries that they're protected.
Right. And Job, when you read Job, it talks about that a lot. And basically paraphrasing, Yahweh is saying, and you are, okay, how do you think I did all this? Were you there? Come on, dude, you know? So, I mean, if you read it, it's really funny. And Job is like, I'm sorry, you know? So, but we aren't supposed to know all of this, but he gives us enough to, number one, dispel the lies, and number two, know who we are and where we live and who we are to him. Okay, which is more than enough. I mean, knowing what we do know is pretty awesome. And the fact that we actually, yeah, I'm going to say it, know more than the scientists. Because if you say space exists and that planets and that astronauts are going out there yonder, okay, they are wrong, okay? Oh, by the way, any astronaut that says he's been out to space is a liar. Yeah. As simple as that. So that seems to be a prerequisite for being an astronaut, is to be a liar. Okay? Yeah, you have to be a liar because space doesn't exist. Ergo, lie. So it's not that hard, you know? My time is up. So thank you very much.